Hi, I'm Driti Shah, and this is my podcast, Have You Thought About? I'm a writer who loves to find out about what passions people are pursuing, especially if they're managing to blend together skills in unusual ways. In each edition, I'm going to chat with someone I find particularly interesting and who's managed to fit things together in their life or profession that you might not think of as an obvious match. Here, I'm talking to entrepreneur Samuel Monnie. Samuel, you got in touch because you're actually a fan of the show, so it's lovely to have you on to explore and have a conversation. Now, you stood out to me because you have a real sense of purpose that drives through everything that you're doing. You're an entrepreneur, but you've also had these senior leadership roles at pretty big brand companies. So tell us a little bit more about your journey, but also what you're playing with now.
I'm playing with a company called Purpose Hive, and we help brands prosper from good growth. And we're a strategic brand purpose consultancy. And so that's where I am right now. My prior role to this was a company called Sustainable Brands, where I led revenue, which was sales and marketing. And I got there because I was venting to a mentor of mine about how I'm tired of being in spaces where people don't quite get what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do purpose, I'm trying to do culture, I'm trying to do business, I'm trying to do branding, I'm trying to do all these different things. And it was received in the conventional world as, what do you want to do? So it's not a business thing. So they could always tell me what it wasn't, but they couldn't really receive what it was. So I was venting to a mentor, a guy called Dave Stangus. He's a chief sustainability officer at various places. He's now at Apollo Capital. And he basically said, go to this thing. And I went to this thing called Sustainable Brands. And, you go to these forums, events. It was a digital conference. And you know how digital conferences suck. But this one was amazing. It was in California time, and I'm on the east coast of the US now, where I live. And it was aha after aha. So the first day, finished at 9 p.m., couldn't sleep. Day 2, couldn't sleep. Day 3, couldn't sleep. Day 4, I was buzzing. I can't sleep after going to this stuff. And what I'd realized is I'd finally found my people. Even though it was virtual, I finally found my people. And I reached out to someone just to say thank you. And then a couple of weeks later, I ended up speaking to them. And then 4 months later, next thing you know, I'm working at Sustainable Brands, where I was for a couple of years. And then most recently, started Purpose Hive. I think the connecting dots through everything I've done is I've been a marketer who's always been curious about the world, about people, about how things work. And that curiosity has kind of led me down different pathways. I'm in the purpose space, and I'm really excited in that space.
Wow. And Purpose Hive, now, as someone who is a marketing expert and marketeer, this sounds like a fascinating venture, but as co-founder, what do you hope the audience will actually take away from it? The branding is good, but where's it going to take people?
We know that people are on this journey to be more purposeful. We just feel that the world needs a collection of purposeful people and purposeful brands, and we just help make that happen. Business and the people within businesses should have a positive impact, right? They should benefit humanity and the planet, whether it's sustainability, equity, diversity and inclusion, social justice, biodiversity, accessibility, anti-racism, all of that stuff that's important in the world. How do you infuse that into work? How do you bring that to the table? How do you do that 24/7? Because you kind of alive and then you work. But those two things aren't independent, they're interdependent. So how do you infuse that into what you do? And so we help people do that. We work on personal purpose, but I think perhaps the territory people might be more familiar with, it's like brand purposes and how their brand and their business can do some of these things in a better way.
You're talking a lot about why purpose is so key, but for you personally, so going beyond the brands and who you're working with, has there ever been a time when you felt like you've lost purpose and had to regroup?
Oh, geez, that's a really good question. I've always been dissatisfied with the way things are at work. I've always wanted to go beyond just showing up and doing the thing and going away. I've always felt that kind of detracts from just being really human and being really you. And so throughout my career path and career journey, I remember one meeting, I said whatever I said in the meeting, someone responded, "Come on, Sam, we're here to make a profit." So I don't know what I'd said, but they responded in that way. So I think those are the moments when I kind of lost it. I lost that sense of, maybe we should just focus on the profit stuff. Maybe we should I just reel it in a bit. Sometimes I'd generate response where people would roll their eyes and almost thinking, oh, there he goes again. He's going to talk about this, the humans here or the people this and training that and going beyond just the numbers. And I had this idea that it shouldn't be about the P&L, which people use in business. What I want to call it the prosperity model. And there he goes again. He's trying to change this stuff. So I think those were the moments which happened quite a lot. And I've gotten to the stage in my career where it's not that I don't care. I think I just care so much. I'm going to actually have to do something about it. Going to have to actually be the change, you want to see. I just feel that that is something that I had passion for. And my business partner, Steph Mirza, she's a South Asian woman who's from Canada, but her heritage is Pakistani. And so the first languages she spoke was, I think, Urdu and French, and then English. And my heritage is Ghana. So I'm born and bred in the UK, but my heritage is Ghana, West Africa. So I speak a bit of Ghana. And through my life, I've spent some time in Geneva, Switzerland, and Germany. So I have some bad French and some bad German. And so as we started talking and talking about ideas and purpose and business and brands, we just started creating. And as we started creating, I think our entrepreneurial traits led to this Purpose Hive. So hopefully I've answered your question in terms of I kept losing that sense throughout my career, and I finally got to the stage I'm going to create the thing or co-create the thing that I want to be in the world versus constantly trying to find it somewhere else in the world. And the vision is that we bring a lot of people along with us.
So it seemed quite organic in terms of how this particular endeavour appeared. But at the same time, when you look back at your career and you know, at what you've been up to, how much of it was strategic and how much of it was having that degree of flexibility to bring whatever comes to come?
Listen, if there's a strategy to what I was doing, I would be a billionaire by now. I'd be one of those billionaires, tech billionaires or something, and I had it all, cunning plan. Part of my career journey took me out of the UK, and first of all, like academically. So I was studying in Leicester, studied marketing and law, and my professor, Hugh Phillips, was from Northern Ireland, and he mentioned a scholarship, and I applied for this scholarship. And I went to Northern Ireland to study, and I did my master's there. And it was at a time when everyone told me, don't go to Northern Ireland. You don't want to go there. Because people who know their history, the troubles were there, and there was violence between, the Catholic and the Protestant communities. And so when someone tells me not to do something, I've got to do it. Everyone was saying, don't go. I'm going to go and find out myself. And I loved it. It was a great experience, a great year of my life. Career-wise, I had a couple of steps, but I remember sat in my at my desk. I was at Gillette at the time. One of the leaders tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey Sam, are you mobile?" And the offices were based in Isleworth, West London. "Tell me tomorrow if you're mobile." And I just thought, oh, sure. Okay. So the next day, he literally tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you mobile or not?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Great, there's a job for you in Geneva." And I said, whoa. You said I was mobile. You didn't say if I was going to move to a freaking different country and drive on the other side of the road and all that stuff. I mean, it was and he said, "Well, you got 24 hours to decide." And I'm thinking, that's not fair. I'm going to move. I'm about to start living a fabulous life in London. And I don't know what came down upon me. Something came down. I think it was an Oprah episode or something years ago that I'd watched. And some voice said to me, "Look, you don't have a reason to say no. Your answer is yes. If you don't have a good reason to say no, you have to say yes." And I thought, so annoying. So annoying, because I didn't really have a good reason to say no. So then I said yes, and then I moved to Switzerland, and I was there for 18 months. And then it happened again. They moved the office to Germany, and they said, "So, how do you feel about Germany?" I said, "I've got to go to Germany." I spent 3 years in Germany. During that, I won an award, and I met my now ex-wife, but my future wife at the time, who lived in the US. And so, let's go to America. And then I went to America, and fast forward to today, I'm kind of doing the Purpose Hive thing. So if someone can take the strategic next steps out of that, I think the strategy was to say yes when you're not sure, because you never know, you can always change your mind. And so I guess curiosity was my superpower, and I just kept being curious and following that curiosity.
Clearly a lot of moves there, but was some of it also your gut instinct and inner feeling being like, let's just keep going with this because it's worked once already or it's worked twice already? And following on from that, was there ever a time when you were like, what the heck have I done?
Yeah, well, what the heck have I done? It happens quite often, but I think after the first time, you kind of realize, well, you can figure this out. You can ask someone, you can learn, you can grow, you can explore. And when I first went to Switzerland, there were people there living there already. There were Swiss people there. So I figured, well, it's a country of people. I guess I could figure out how to go over there and adapt. And I talked about driving on the other side. I remember that one of the perks of the job at that time was that you got a car, and I got the car, got the keys, and had to drive home. And then I realized, wait, I literally don't know how to drive on the other side of the road. What am I going to do? But I'm not going to give up. And it's in foreign. I'm supposed to do foreign. But then another brainwave. Sometimes I get these moments of these voices come to me, this vision comes to me. I thought, I'm going to call a taxi. So in my bad French, I called a taxi. And then in my bad French, I basically said, look, I'm I'm not gonna get in the taxi. I'm actually gonna just follow you to the apartment. The guy, I think, was like, yeah. I said, allez, allez, je voudrais, I know, whatever. I'll drive. And eventually, we kind of communication worked, and I literally followed the taxi driver to the place. And he basically said, "That's never happened to me before." And he was impressed. He said, and I was impressed because no one had ever hired a taxi to follow the taxi and get in a taxi. So I think if I don't know if that answered your question. I guess the curiosity and creativity comes to me because I was determined to get there. I wasn't going to be completely reckless and drive by myself, but I could figure out, well, here's a solution that could work for both of us. He gets paid, he drives, I get to go where I go, and I figure it out and I learn. That's how I treat life. I don't know, but I sure we could figure this out. And there's probably a way we could do this, or I could do this that's going to work. It's going to get me to what I want without necessarily doing it the way it should be done, according to the rules or how other people would do it. So I think that's kind of my philosophy of solving problems and solving challenges. So I've always been a good problem solver, but sometimes it might sound a bit out there or a bit eccentric or a bit different. But hey, I mean, it got it solved, and it was, I guess, innovative, but also effective, right?
How much of a role does your Ghanaian heritage play to this? Because it's not very British to be doing what you just did.
Yeah, that's a really great question. My heritage is my heritage. I guess I don't analyze it. It's just me. But one way it does show up actually is one of the things I realized is that people from the south of the equator, one of the habits you have, one of the behaviors or cultural norms is to eat with your hands. And so having that ability, but also the idea of communal eating. So I would travel the world and I would go to Asia and they'd want to order me Pizza Hut or Burger King. And I'd be furious. I'd be arguing, I don't want Pizza Hut. I don't want Burger King. I want your food. No, you don't. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Yes, I do. So then eventually I would just take one of the meals that show up with theirs, and some poor person from China would have to eat the pizza because I'm having their food from the food truck that they love. So that was my default. And I realized, it's because I'm comfortable eating with my hands and communal eating and connecting with people over food. That was just my norm. Whereas in the West, it tends to be, here's your knife, here's your fork, here's your plate, here's your separate thing. So that separation is something that I've never had culturally as a norm. I had both, right? I had the Western way of eating or the Ghanaian way of eating, and you'd have, if any Nigerians listening, Ghanaian jollof is clearly superior to Nigerian jollof. Controversy. And you don't have to enter this conversation. I'm just putting it out there, just for the record. Having lived in Switzerland, I had to learn French and German. One of the things I was so furious that the Global Language Authority did not agree genders of objects, because in French, the car is la voiture, and in German, it's das Auto. So you have to adapt. And in English, it's a car. So in English, it's one thing. In French, it's feminine. And in German, it's neutrum, it's neutral. So objects can be different genders, right? And you have to just learn that because different cultures, different society have built different norms. And so your brain has to be able to say one thing, three things, or five things, or seven things. And again, I think that's what being at my Ghanaian heritage, it made sense. The default wasn't English or one version. The default could be multiple options, multiple versions, multiple possibilities. And I think that's in my DNA, my brain. And so I can connect with different people. I've been exposed to different things from an early age, but also I've kept being curious throughout. So I've found ways to connect with people, and people, I think, have found ways to connect with me as well.
Awesome. And in fact, I'm going to pick up on that language thing because you have travelled extensively, you have moved across the globe. There are often conversations around who gets to be called an expat, who gets treated like an immigrant. So what's your experience around that?
I've always tried to connect with folks where they are, what they do. So one of the most unique experiences of my life was when I studied Northern Ireland. When I went there, the weirdest thing happened as a Black person. I was welcomed by both sides of the community. And because I was not the other, they could somehow identify, that's a Catholic or they're Protestants. And for various reasons, self-protection, they would separate. The Catholics would go here. So when I was a student, I went there was 10 of us in the class. It took me 2 weeks to realize that those three were the Catholics and those three were the Protestants, because self-segregate. Whereas someone like myself, I was welcome because I wasn't the threat. I was, was the Black guy from the UK. So I was like, you're welcome. So I could go to the Catholic and Protestant place. And so that was a feeling of welcoming that was odd in a positive way, because racism exists and the dynamic of being Black in the US and the UK is different. But that was a unique experience where I was welcomed. But I think the core of the question is what I try and do when I go to places is to connect with the locals and do what they do, eat where they eat. And I remember in Germany, I became so German in terms of my German beers and my Wurst, eating the dryer eye and I think that's like 3 eggs and Obazda is the German camembert, which they kind of bastardized, and you have that with Britzel. So I would eat the local stuff and they would like, oh, you like this? I said, yeah. Right. So I'm going to experiment and try the things that the people from that region do and basically making that the worst thing. This breaks my heart when you see like British tourists go away. Can I have my fish and chips? It's like, why do you go to Indonesia? And have fish and chips. When can you not smell the sorcery that's going on in the air? Can you not? Wherever you go, I think your duty is to try to at least learn 1 or 2 words in the language, to try and make an effort to connect with people from where they're coming from and how they see the world. Russian was hard. Struggled when I went to Russia, the language, because the Cyrillic alphabet is completely different.
And again, for you, is it quite important also to break any stereotypes that people might have about you? The optics can represent one thing, what people want to decide, but then, we're having this conversation now. There is a heck of a lot to you. There is a lot going on. There's a lot of intersectionality. So is it also something that drives you to be like, I'm breaking these?
Yeah, you've hit something there, which is probably subconscious. I've been in France, I think 2 or 3 times this year, but I was in Lyon, a bunch of us, the lads, we've been going on these rugby trips for the last 20 years, and it's either Dublin or Edinburgh or Rome or Paris. And this year, the rugby England-France game was in Lyon. And I was in the stadium and I was talking to, there's like the people like, not exactly security. They wear the bibs and just making sure people are stood in the right places. But I was talking to a woman and I was speaking to her in French and she was perplexed. She was looking at me and responding as if she was confused. And I thought, oh no, she doesn't understand my French. And then she brought a friend and we started talking in French. And she basically said, are you sure you're British? I said, yeah, I'm British. And I was talking away and I was like, huh? Why didn't they understand me? And this guy tapped me on the shoulder and he said, you know why they were confused? I said, no. She said, they couldn't understand why you were speaking French and they could understand. And I said, wait, what? Huh? No, they said, no Brit comes over here and speaks French to them. It's like they just shout in English. I said, huh? And they were confused, but they weren't convinced I was really English because I was speaking French to them. And so when you talk about breaking the stereotypes, I think I remember being on a call with a company I was doing some consulting work with, and I saw there was a couple of people from Germany. I welcomed them in German and said hello, and they were bamboozled. Like, huh? Who's this black guy speaking German to us with a Hessian accent? So, and I'm thinking, well, you're German, it's a global call, and you know how global calls suck for most people who aren't English speakers. So let me make some effort just to connect with someone I know. And they sent me a note afterwards that say that they've been in this company 10 years. It's the first time someone's actually like made an effort. So I'm thinking, oh, that was clear for me that you do that. But I think subconsciously it is disarming in a positive way when I would show up to German with a bored English accent. I've literally just got back from France. I was in the Cannes Lion Creative Festival and bursting out my French to the taxi drivers or people in the it's really cool because most people don't make an effort. And I think maybe there's a slogan. Just make an effort. As I'm talking this out, you're my therapist, you're hearing it for the first time. I'm realizing, yes, what's the expectation? What's the base level assumption? And I go against that. And you've made me think of an example. When I was at school, I was always have this kind of tendency. The teacher asked, there's this quiz, what E means to kill? So I said what E means to kill. What word would come to mind? First word that you come to mind if you're like, what E means to kill someone.
God, you've put me on the spot here. Kill. End? To end someone?
End. That's a good one. End. I remember I was in the classroom and there was about 20 people and they all said execute. Oh, and I went for no, but the thing is that end is good. Execute is another one. And I went with the word exterminate. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to pick a word that different to the rest of the class. Kind of the masses are going to pick this word. And I'm going to find another solution that's also true, that's also possible. And I think that sort of cheeky little provocative, like trying a bit harder, just trying to be a bit better or just a bit different has always been part of my DNA. And I don't know, I guess I got it from my parents and my upbringing. But yeah, I've always had that. And it's just kind of it's a little bit and it's a little bit, not boring and not the same and they'll standard. And I like living like that. I have a little bit of joy and a little bit of laughter without, when you're around me, wherever I'm going or events, there's always laughter. And so that's what I think. I'm just that kind of glass 3/4 full. I don't even go with the half full, half empty. I'm going to be 3/4 full. And then people say, you can't do that. I said, why not? Who made the rules that you've got to pick one or the other? I'm going to create a third category, 3/4 full. Have that.
Now, you have multiple passions, but music, it stands out for you. So you were talking about efforts. You make significant effort to bring live music in wherever you are. How do you do it? And how the heck do you afford it? Because live music is not cheap.
don't. Yeah, there's a phrase that I apply to this. It's called "Don't analyze it," and that phrase absolved all accountability and responsibility. I think the time we're like in June when doing this, I've been to 27 concerts, and I got to this phase this year that if I like an artist, I'm going to go. If I'm curious about an artist, I'm going to go. If there's an artist, I like going to the Blue Note Jazz Club, and there was a guy I bumped into. We got chatting, and he mentioned a jazz band called Soul Life. It was his favorite band. He doesn't live in the country, and he said, "Damn, you got to go." I bought a ticket for Soul Life because this guy, it was the thing he loved. He loved this band so much, and they were amazing. But imagine that someone says, "Oh, it's my favorite band. I'm so gutted I can't go," and I'm thinking, well, I can go on your behalf vicariously. So there's partially that essence of experiencing. And I find, musicians are the best storytellers. Bob Marley put words eloquently together and basically get you to jig along to uprising, revolution, and changing the world while you're singing along to the melody and the harmony because you've got a catchy hook. So I think musicians are the best storytellers. They're the greatest truth tellers. Mercy Me by Marvin Gaye, which Mercy Me Ecology is one of the most beautifully sung, beautifully written, beautifully told stories about the planet, some of the challenges we face. Speaking truth to power, I think musicians have always done that. So being in their orbit and really just appreciating the ability of musicians the songwriters especially. My heroes have always been songwriters. They're the ones, if I meet them or see them or read about them, they just take my breath away because to be so creative and so profound. I think Quincy Jones says that the geniuses of this world are mathematicians and musicians because they can both write the formula, they can write the algorithm, but then they can create something completely different and completely new.
And that was entrepreneur Samuel Monnie. Do you have an interdisciplinary life? Because I would love to hear from you, and perhaps we can chat about it on this podcast that goes with my newsletter, which is also called Have You Thought About? And it can be found via www.dhritishah.com. Please join me next time for a fun conversation with another guest who likes to mix up lots of things in their life. Do listen to past episodes and rate and review the podcast if you've enjoyed it. Thanks to Rian Shah for the music.